now. There we go.
You're listening to the Yin and Yang Show, a marketing and sales conversation providing strategic and tactical advice about inbound sales and marketing. And now, here are your hosts, Lindsay Kelly and Brian Signorelli.
Hello and welcome. Welcome to another episode of the Yin and Yang Show. I am Lindsay Kelly, the marketing arm of this podcast, and I'm joined always by my friend Brian Sig.
Hey, good morning, Lindsay. How are you?
I'm well. Happy New Year.
Good. Happy New Year to you, too.
Yeah, I can't believe it's the 6th today.
I know.
Episode number 4.
Time flies, doesn't it?
It does. It does.
How was your New Year?
It was fabulous. It was lots of children here, so we were all here. We watched the ball drop. We watched the fiasco that was Mariah Carey, and and it was nice. How about you?
Good. I had I think one of the best New Years I've had in a while. I went out for a few drinks at a Chinese restaurant with some of my friends and my girlfriend, and then we went out to a late hibachi dinner, which was fantastic, actually.
Very nice. Very nice.
Made it back home in time for the ball drop as well. So just my kind of New Year's, I guess.
Very nice. Yeah, no, I did the wild and crazy thing in like college and just after college. And then it was like, you know what? This is nice. I'm wearing my PJs, got my champagne.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, good. Well, today we covered the past couple episodes. We covered what is inbound marketing. And so now we're going to cover what is inbound sales. And that's going to be all Brian. But Brian, before you get started, I made this statement in the last episode. I said, well, I really got to go and go through that course and get my certification. And yesterday afternoon, I passed the inbound sales certification.
Ooh.
This marketer is inbound
Congratulations.
sales certification.
That's what I'm talking about. That's sales and marketing alignment if I've ever seen it. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was really good. I really enjoyed how they were able to tie together the inbound marketing aspects to some of the inbound sales aspects to kind of help the folks going through this particular training understand a little bit about what their marketing counterparts are doing. So I really liked that. It was a little tough for me, I will say. Like, I didn't get a great score because it's pretty intense, and it's not. I mean, I have to take the inbound marketing certification again because I'm for like
It's expired.
the 5th time it's about to expire. So I'm like, and every year I'm like, should I go through the training again or just see if I pass the test? But I'll probably go through the training again just as a refresher. But I really liked how they talked about the changing buyer and their behaviors, because that's such a big deal, especially in the world that I work in with office technology folks. A lot of them still kind of hang out in that world of 10 years ago where they're like, cold call, cold call, cold call. And these guys explained the why behind why that's not working and what it is exactly, step by step, tactically, that you need to do to get to the buyer and get through the buying process. So I'm really excited for you to kind of talk about your spin on this, because you are sales. This is your life. You've never known anything but this.
That's right. That's right. Well, congratulations on going through it. If you want a little known secret about me and the inbound sales methodology exam, first time I took it, when it came out, I figured I worked at HubSpot for 4 years. I'll just take the test. I won't go through the actual classes. Like, why would I need the classes? It's ridiculous. Scored a 60 the first time around. Couldn't believe it. So I went back through the classes. I watched everything from beginning to end. And I'll tell you, I mean, I've done most of the major certifications that HubSpot has. I think personally, I mean, I'm biased because obviously I work in sales, I guess, and I've been doing it, but I think it was the best certification. Either the best or one of the top 2 certifications that the company has put together. And I'm also proud to report that I did pass on my second time around, and I scored a nice 90. That was very respectable, I think. So
yes, I passed by the skin of my teeth with the absolute bare minimum. I got a 75.
Hey. Passing's passing. We got to set a bar somewhere, and that's what I'm talking about. So, if you sold full time, I'd say, yeah, Lindsay, you might want to go back, like just, brush up on a few things, but it's not your full-time thing. It's not your full-time shtick, right? So
no, everything else I get 100 on.
There you go.
So
exactly.
That was a big blow to my ego, but half the questions I'm like, oh, I don't know. It could be this, but it could be this too.
I know. There's so many points where I was thinking of kind of arguing with with the people that wrote the exam, because the academy team sits not more than a stone's throw away from my desk. I could walk around the corner and through a set of doors and say, hey, you, like, this question's totally messed up. I should have this rescored. Like, this is definitely not wrong. This is a trick question or something like that. So I'll be sure to, give them a piece of my mind for you next time I see them.
Thank you. Yes, it was tough. It was tough.
Yeah.
But that's good. So give me your definition. What is inbound sales?
Inbound marketing or inbound sales. So the way I think about inbound sales is that it completely flips the paradigm of selling on its head, right? And so if you think, say 15, 20 years ago, the way that a sales rep would go about selling is, that they would kind of go through, it's hard to believe, but they would go through the yellow pages. They would go through, lists procured by marketing. They would have, their phone and this, maybe clunky old laptop that they're going through, and they would just start cold calling. Right? They would just literally be dialing through either phone books or lists of leads that are provided by the marketing team. They'd be trying to reach out to people who they thought were good fits. Now, the reality is when inbound marketing started, it flipped that whole paradigm on its head, which then forced sellers to also flip their behavior. So the thing is, with inbound marketing, you can kind of think through who you want to attract to your business and to your website. But at the end of the day, you don't actually choose who comes to your website and who actually decides to raise their hand. You can try to influence it, but the reality is, and I can tell you from experience, we have plenty of people coming to HubSpot's website that were students, that were retired people, that were, we had this anti-persona called Intranet Ian, who's someone just consuming tons and tons of our content, but is never going to buy anything from us. And so I think the thing that's difficult for someone in sales, or it's difficult for them to get used to, is you're no longer necessarily calling on people who you say, this is an amazing fit. Instead, your job is more about trying to sift through and filter out who is a good fit to talk to and who isn't. Now, of course, you're going to be helped by the marketing team to get that lead flow coming in, and the marketing team is going to help do some of that pre-qualification. But the reality is, it's your job as a salesperson to figure out who those good fits are and who they aren't, right? And then to recommend appropriate next steps as a result. Get a little bit more specific about what inbound selling is. So once you actually start talking to somebody, the way I think about it, to come back to our analogy, or the analogy I used, or the kind of parallel I drew to the way selling worked 20 years ago. Have you ever seen the movie Glengarry Glen Ross?
No, but I know.
No, but the monologue.
Yes,
from
I
Alec
do.
Baldwin. Okay, so if Alec Baldwin's listening to this, it'd be amazing.
Well, no, that would be funny because he was just at Inbound.
That's right. That's right.
At
So
HubSpot's big event. Yeah, he was there.
He may be. So he might have something to say about this on Twitter, and if he does, by all means, maybe we could mention him when we promote this on Twitter. But I loved his monologue, but I hated that movie. I only got through the first, hour, and I turned it off. It was so slow and boring. But anyway, if anybody has seen that monologue that Alec Baldwin gave in Glengarry Glen Ross, he talks about the Glengarry Glen Ross leads. He talks about, these amazing leads. He holds up this pink stack of cards and shows them to the sales reps and says something to the effect of these are the Glengarry leads, but you don't get them, right? And he also talks about this concept, when he's kind of berating the entire sales team, talks about this concept of always be closing, right? And I think that the biggest difference between the way sales used to work and the way sales works now is probably summed up in that kind of manifestation, or that statement that it's all about it used to be always be closing. Inbound selling is flipping that insofar as that we recommend that you should always be helping. Right? I even say always be consulting, if not closing, right? I think I kind of like consulting a little bit better. And so the idea with inbound selling is that it's really buyer-centric, it's consultative in nature, and it's personalized. And the reason for this is that, like we've talked about with inbound marketing, buyers are in control. They don't need to pick up a phone. They don't need to rely on a salesperson, quite frankly, for almost anything anymore. Through most businesses, you can buy touchlessly to some extent, and if you can't actually make the purchase, if nothing else, you can certainly do almost all of your research without the sales rep involved. And in fact, I think we've talked about this already, Lindsay, that, almost 60% of a sales process and the research that goes into a due diligence that a buyer does is done, depending on who you ask, either before a prospect ever even engages a sales rep. Other people would say that 60% is not done before they talk to a sales rep, but is done just without a sales rep. And I think it's either Forrester or Gartner that predict that number is going to move up to 80% by 2020.
By 2020.
And when it does, this is just simply forcing sales reps to rethink the way that they differentiate themselves. Your differentiation isn't the fact that you're a sales rep and you hold the keys to the company's information. You don't hold the keys to the company's information anymore. Prospects can get pricing sheets. They can learn about your customers. They can read customer reviews. They can connect with your CEO or look at your CEO's profile on LinkedIn or Twitter. They can they can research all about you and your company on social media. They don't need you.
Not
they
in the
just
beginning,
don't.
no.
No, they just don't. And by the time that they do need you, you better be ready to be a consultative seller, or what I would call an inbound seller, and to help them navigate through the final stages of what we call the buyer's journey.
And the buyers. Why do I have an echo? Do you hear it?
I don't.
Okay, well that's good. So all right, this is highly annoying. I'm just going to let you do all the talking. But I do want to make one really quick point.
Yeah.
When it comes to folks in our industry, a lot of times they say, well, that's not how people buy copiers. That's not how they buy managed IT services. They have to have us. We're the consultative people that are helping them to figure out what they need. That's not true anymore. I mean, think about how you buy for your own business. Put yourself in your shoes as an owner and go, well, if somebody says that, I need a new, software system for accounting, I'm not just going to take somebody's word for it that this is great, and I'm not going to pick up the phone and just call QuickBooks. I'm going to do some research online, or I'm going to have somebody who works with me, maybe my office manager, my executive assistant, do some research for me, bring it back to me, and then I'm still going to do some due diligence and do a quick search on Google.
Right.
And I mean, and that's, these are folks who are in their 50s, 60s, somewhere around there, because they've had these companies for a long time. But think about the second generation coming up inside of your dealership, the younger folks. Like, most of them right now are in their 30s. They're coming up through the ranks, probably being groomed to be the leader of the organization at one point, at some point in the future. And you know what? If they're working with you, they're doing most of this research online. And I guarantee you, there are some of these folks right now that are nodding their heads up and down like, yep, my son and I we're banging heads all the time because he thinks that we should be doing this, and I think that it's always worked this way, and I've got to be convinced. But when you take a step back and look at business today, almost everything is done online. Almost everything. It's crazy.
Ask any sales rep. I don't care if you're a sales rep at the very end of your career or a sales rep just starting your career. As long as you have sold one thing ever in the business world, let's say, I would ask you, how many people did you have to deal with during your sales process? Or flipped another way, I would just ask, did you deal with truly one person and one person only?
What's the average number of folks that you have to work with as a salesperson in order to get to the close?
So according to Corporate Executive Board research, the number is above 5. That there's average five influencers in the average B2B sale. I would tell you from experience that feels about right. They predict that number is going to be closer to 7 in the next 3 to 5 years. I feel like that's a bit much. I feel like that's kind of and by the way, did you see they got acquired by Gartner? That's a total side note.
Oh, no, I didn't.
Yeah, they're acquired by Gartner. So it's kind of crazy. I used to work for them.
There's acquisitions everywhere.
Everywhere.
In our industry,
everywhere.
It's insane right now. Acquire. Everybody's acquiring.
Yeah.
Growing.
People aren't getting the organic growth, right? So that's what we're here to talk about, is the organic growth, never mind the inorganic stuff, even though, I wish everybody well doing the acquisitions. Don't mean to, wish you any ill will or anything like that. But anyway, where was it? Yeah. So in terms of the average number of buyers, that are involved, I mean, you're not necessarily talking to 5 different people along the way. But I guarantee you that you're talking to, a VP of something, and the director or manager or frontline employee that works under them. You're then probably dealing with a CEO. You're then probably going to have to deal with finance. You might have to deal with procurement, depending on how big the business is. You may have to deal with legal to negotiate part of the contract, right? So right there, I think I just listed off at least five different people, right? Like that's easy. Right. And so the reality is like that by itself. I mean, and the other thing I think about too is, as a salesperson, if you're, I don't think that salespeople need to be convinced of this. I feel like if you've worked in sales, you already experienced this, like you've seen it. But the reality is that, these people that show up during the sales process, they typically show up at the end. I can think of how many demos I got on, where I go through a connect call to learn a little bit about a business. I then go through an exploratory call. I then do either a second exploratory call or some sort of a goal setting call, or kind of a consultative, like, like prescriptive, like, here's what I think you should do next type call. And then if we got to the point where they're ready for a product demo, in my case, because, selling software, I can't tell you how many times people would say, yeah, we have like 15 people that are going to join for the demo.
Really?
Maybe not 15, but like 10, 8,
Still,
something like that. Like everyone in the business wants to see the demo. Right. And you gotta remember that you're not gonna run an exploratory call. You're gonna have a call with, each of those 10 people. But I can assure you that they are absolutely doing research, and that there's always somebody that says, oh, but I found this about this company, and I saw this review about this company. That is exactly what we're talking about, right? That you, on the marketing side, you need to be aware of that. You need to be controlling that, because if you aren't all over that, if you don't shape your own destiny and your own brand, it will be shaped for you. I guarantee you. And then on the sales side, if you think that you're dealing with a single decision maker, you think that your business's brand and the marketing work that isn't being done is not influencing your sale, you're just dead wrong. It's just blasphemy. It really is. It's just. Anybody who thinks that way is going to be, quite frankly, out of a job.
Yeah, and I mean it's funny because when we first started as an agency, and we started talking about HubSpot and marketing, automation and inbound marketing, and nobody really understood what any of that meant. So we were doing a lot of educating, which is what salespeople are supposed to do, and we didn't have a dedicated salesperson at the time. But one of our biggest obstacles was we brought the technology in too soon. And so we were like, oh, well, we're HubSpot. We do only HubSpot when we implement all of these strategies.
Yep.
And then people would come back and be like, okay, so I found something cheaper. Will you do it with this other cheaper product? And
I remember.
Like,
no! Yes. Yep.
I'm like, first of all, I've never heard of it. Second of all, I can't even figure out how to sign up for it to see what it looks like. Like, how did you find this little... And there are so many different things that people can do. As a salesperson, you have to, and I was not a salesperson, so I was not controlling, the educational aspect of, no, it has nothing to do with the fact that you're buying this really expensive thing. Like, we're offering value. We're giving you, here's our quote unquote product. We're going to solve this challenge that you have. And you're going to be really happy at the end, because we're not cheap, and neither is HubSpot, but your results are going to be way better. So, sorry, I had to cut in there with my horrible limited sales experience.
No, I mean, it's a great example of what is going on today. There's so much more. I mean, there's so much group decision making. There's so much research being done without sales reps involved. And you especially ask anybody in the technology industry. We're moving in the direction of a touchless sale. And some people are saying that, I think, again, it was either Forrester or Gartner that predicts that there's going to be 1 million sales jobs cut by 2020 in inside B2B sales, which I think represents maybe a 10-ish% cut in the United States of the workforce. I mean, that's not insignificant, but I don't know if that's actually what's going to happen. But what I do know is happening already is that people, just look at any statistic. Even think of yourself, like, nobody picks up the phone.
No.
no one wants to talk to you, right? So you've got to find these different ways. So if the buyers are in control and they're doing their research and like they don't want to talk to you, and they have, you know, endless alternatives to research, the question is, as a business and as a salesperson, how are you going to stand out? How are you going to differentiate yourself? And how are you going to be, you know, I would say that, you know, really the biggest trick for anybody working in sales now is it's not about building your prospect list and dialing through it. It's about developing the right listening mechanisms to be able to hear when someone who is a good fit is ready to potentially engage with you. And it's not going to be over the phone first. I can guarantee that.
So explore that listening mechanism. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So, I mean, you know, there are a bunch of different ways to listen and kind of understand what, which people are maybe ready to talk to you. So for example, the first thing that we talk about are obviously inbound leads, right? The leads that are on your website, like are coming and converting through your website. So those are the people that you should be like, basically you should be working with the marketing team on and figuring out, okay, you know, is there something we've learned about, like, you know, from our customers who maybe have been sourced through our website? You know, have they come from, you know, organic search? Do they come from social media? Do they come from paid search? Do they come through email marketing? What are the channels they're responding to, right? So that's one trigger to say, is a person worth reaching out to? The next is looking at what type of content have they consumed on your website, right? Have they just looked at, you know, about us pages and maybe your homepage, or have they looked at things like your product specs and your pricing pages on your website? That's a natural buying sign that someone's giving. Obviously, if they do things like fill out a contact us or request a price quote type of contact form, that's another obvious buying sign. That's probably the most obvious stuff. I think stepping back a layer from that, the next things that you look at are the people that are coming to your website but are not necessarily filling out forms or revealing themselves. And we call those people inbound companies. So inbound companies are literally just the other businesses. It's the other 95% of your website traffic that is kind of unknown. There are ways to visualize it, whether through HubSpot or a bunch of other software technologies that do this as point solutions. You're able to understand which companies are coming to your website. It's through like a reverse IP lookup. And as a salesperson, you can look through and say, okay, at least I know the companies that are on our website. Now let me go to LinkedIn and try to figure out who, you know, I know that we normally talk to the VP of X. Let me see who that person is. Let me see if I can start a conversation there. Taking a step further back from that even, so, you know, we have inbound leads, probably one of the best source. Inbound companies is one of probably next best. The next couple from there would be things like setting up Google alerts for certain keywords that are relevant to your business or the types of challenges people have. Setting up views in LinkedIn based on certain keywords. Or even engaging people on different posts or different topics they're talking about, getting involved in LinkedIn groups, commenting, engaging there, using Twitter or maybe even Facebook, depending on the industry that you're in, and setting up social media feeds to understand who's mentioning certain keywords along the way that might be relevant to you. Even setting up keywords of your competitors. So you can listen and understand when someone's complaining about a competitor. That's a perfect opportunity to reach out to someone. They may not reach out to you right then, but if you're not able to listen and respond to that really rapidly, then you're missing sales opportunities. So it's probably a whole nother session about how to listen properly as an inbound seller. But that's kind of that's one of the secret weapons I think that an inbound salesperson has today, to combat the idea that that buyers are doing all this research on their own.
Yep. And just to help the folks listening or watching figure out how bright. Oh, I have somebody coming in. Who's coming in? Hi, Pulley.
Hi.
What are you doing? We're live. How are you?
Oh, hi. I didn't know
Hi.
we were live. Dude, I thought we had a meeting today.
Oh, no, not right now. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I should probably let everybody know that there's no meeting right now, and we changed it to 11, and 10:30 used to be the time, and so everybody's like, oh, 10:30, meeting time. Meeting at 11. I love live, not 10:30. But I wanted to help everybody understand what it is that you have at your disposal to be able to see these things, because you have just like our audience. Remember, we're talking about office technology, copier reps, document management sales reps, folks who are using certain technologies in their business that don't have these capabilities. You have a marketing automation tool. It could be anything. I mean, we have HubSpot. You have HubSpot.
Right.
Marketo does the same thing. Pardot. They all have these kind of sales listening monitoring tools. They've taken out all of the horrible data entry. Everybody is able to look into the back end and see, if you're working, if you're trying to get like McCormick, the spice company. I say that I used to be from Baltimore. I used to work at a dealership, and I swear to God, it smelled like steamed crabs every day when I walked outside, because it was a wonderful, they make Old Bay. And I was like, oh, it's so good.
It is amazing.
Right. And I'm like,
a long day on fries or on a soft shell crab sandwich.
Chicken. Put it on chicken.
Chicken.
It's so good on chicken.
Yeah. Right.
But I digress. But let's say that we're trying to get into that entity. So if you're able to go into the back end of HubSpot and see, oh, McCormick actually has been on the site. There are, and in this training, they literally walk you through, okay, how do you attack this now, like as a sales rep? And it's the marriage of inbound marketing and inbound sales, because the marketing team is creating different types of content throughout the different stages of somebody's buying journey to help move them along. So as a sales rep, if you are able to work with your marketing team, understand what it is that you have from a content perspective, and then surround that company, whether that's, pick up the phone and call, that's, cold call technically. But you can also leave a valuable message like, hey, I'm going to follow up with an email, and there's this piece in there that I thought you might be interested in, based upon the fact that, somebody in your organization is looking at the document management pages of our website. So, if you have questions, I'm happy. So be helpful. Jay Bear says there are two letters difference between sell, and help.
Yeah.
2 letters difference. And the ones who help are the ones that end up getting the sale.
Yep.
That's all buyers want. They want to be helped. They want to learn. They want to be educated. And if you're you guys are doing the same thing you've always done. You used to cut out, and I know this for a fact, you used to cut out newspaper articles and mail it to your customers because they were featured in the Baltimore Sun or whatever it might be. And be like, congratulations, this is awesome. Well, please do the same darn thing online. You can, hey, I saw this great article online. You send it through LinkedIn. There's this weird etiquette with LinkedIn where people actually reply to you. So isn't it strange?
True.
Like I've got this kid, I swear to God, he just graduated high school, and he's been like all over me like white on rice on LinkedIn. And I keep trying to explain to him, first of all, I don't have to plan a sorority or fraternity event where your Snapchat filter is going to help me. I work with people who I can barely get to work on LinkedIn. Okay? And it's adorable because he's like, well, if I could just have a couple minutes to talk to you. And I'm like, about what? Do you know how many people want to talk to me?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's cute. But I totally digress there.
It is a weird thing. Like no one knows publicly. It would be interesting though if LinkedIn actually had to drive, and I wonder if Microsoft will do this now that they own LinkedIn. If there was something that basically showed you how likely someone was to respond to any message, like, you know what I mean by that is like, it's the same way that, on Amazon or eBay or whatever, you can rate a seller. Question is like, can you rate? I've always thought I really think it'd be interesting because there is so much, and I'm really digressing here and I'll keep it very short. I promise. Okay. It's a totally different topic, but like, I think that this is a little bit nutty, but I think that there is so much power that the buyer has today and that the seller doesn't have. And I think that it'd be interesting to give sellers a mechanism to rate buyers in terms of like, what's their personality? How likely are they to respond? When they do respond, is it nasty or are they treating me like a human? Things like that. I don't really know what good that would do necessarily, aside from like make sales reps feel better about themselves sometimes, but I just kind of thought it would be interesting.
Huh. Yeah. No, that's an interesting. I mean, it's kind of like Uber. You rate each other. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome,
It's a
awesome
mutual accountability
fair,
system.
but-
It's kind of like, making a better world, a more collaborative world. Yeah.
So, but yeah, and I think we're just about out of time. But what I want to do in another session, it doesn't have to be next week. Maybe it will be. We'll see. Is I want to actually walk through the different stages of
Yes.
the inbound sales methodology, because I
Yes.
walked through the inbound marketing methodology. But that was a great high level overview of inbound sales and kind of helping people start to understand how the buyer works, how you need to evolve as a seller in order to be where the buyer is. All the different things that you can take that you used to do in a manual way and in a more traditional way and translate that into working with folks online. So I think that would be fun for another session. But for now,
Yeah.
we're definitely out of time. And guys, thank you again for tuning in. If you would, hop on over into iTunes and give us a rating if you like us. Now that we have 4 episodes down, I'm like, okay, maybe now we can get some ratings. This would be great. So hop on over to iTunes, give us a rating, tell us that you love us, hate us, are indifferent about us. And if you guys have questions, you can always send them to us. You can find me at Kelly is with an EY, at prospectbuilder.net. Brian Sig is just, are you Brian Signorelli at HubSpot.com?
B Signorelli at HubSpot.com.
B Signorelli at HubSpot.com.
Yeah, send us any ideas or any. We always love to hear feedback on if there's topics you'd like us to explore or dig into, or if you think you've got something to say and you think you should be on the show. Maybe we'll be talking to you sometime in the not so distant future.
That would be awesome. That's a challenge. I want somebody to come on the show who
Podcast Throwdown.
Yes, podcast throwdown. I want like a dealer owner or a sales rep from a dealership or a marketing person from a dealership or somebody from HubSpot or Alec Baldwin.
I love it. Alec Baldwin, you're invited.
You're
All right,
invited.
next up.
All right, guys. Until next time, keep the conversation going.
Keep talking.
You've been listening to the Yin and Yang Show, a marketing and sales conversation with Lindsay Kelly and Brian Signorelli. Join us online at yinandyang.fm. That's www.yinandyang.fm.